The Racing Postcast in association with Paddy Power. They pay more extra places than any other bookie.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Nick Watts presenting the Racing Post Review Postcast, and joining me today, we've got a stellar panel. We've got Tom Nugent from our sponsors, Paddy Power, and Brian Sherin from our Racing Post Ireland office. Good day, lads.
How are things?
Yeah, very well. What a stellar weekend of racing we just had. It was unbelievable. I think Pride of Place should probably go to Almanzor. Tom, we'll start with you. How impressed were you with him? Was Jean-Claude Rouget justified by going to Ascot, or would you still have liked to see him at Chantilly?
Yeah, look, he was obviously extremely impressive and really kind of justified the tagline he'd been getting in the press in the days of coming up to the race as the best 3-year-old in Europe. I think he really stamped his authority there coming down the straight. Look, I personally would believe when you're trying to make a stallion, you should stick to your targets and don't take in those races that kind of start out as an afterthought. And I think Jean-Claude Rouget was right to just go to Ascot. I think the Arc is definitely on the agenda next year, but sticking to 10 furlongs and showing his class at that distance is very important to make the horse into a stallion.
It was good for punters as well, wasn't it? Because Rouget had a plan and he stuck to it all summer. He said after Ireland that he'd be going to Ascot, and he did. So many trainers changed their minds late on, and it plays havoc with like anti-post markets, and people get disappointed who would have backed him for Ascot, and then he goes to Chantilly. So great for the punters as well that he turned up and the right result, Brian.
Yeah, exactly. He was well backed, and I suppose the most impressive thing about him is his turn of foot. Just there's plenty of time to go up and trip for him next year, as Tom mentioned, and actually Tom's colleague on this podcast there on the weekend preview kind of made a little bit of sense to me for the first time ever, just talking about sectionals and his turn of foot. I'd love to read a little bit more into that because it was quite breathtaking for me, and just getting the better of Found, he confirmed that, and I suppose he's a champion.
Yeah, it's amazing as well. You think of the sire, Wooden Bassett. I think he only had 17 mares, or it was either 17 or 19 mares in his first season. One of them turned out to be Almanzor, who's been an absolute champion. So I'm sure his books will increase massively next season. And what about Found? Whatever you've got to be impressed with Found. Whatever Aidan O'Brien asks her to do, she does it and does it well. And she ran an absolute cracker. Will this detract from her chance if she goes to America, or do you think she'll just pull it out again? Tom, what do you think of her?
Look, she ran her race again. You can nearly set your watch by Found at this stage. She's so reliable. She's actually drifted a little bit in the Breeders' Cup turf market now, out to 11-2. Look, it's hard to know. Aidan says she's probably one of the most genuine fillies he's ever had. She seems to just empty herself every time she goes to the track. She's had a long year, and a spin to America is going to be a big ask for her again. So it's a case of whether you want to stick with her if you think she can reproduce one of those runs. But she very rarely lets punters down. Now she always runs for her money.
And Brian, what would you do if you were Aidan? The Breeders' Cup turf, he could go with Highland Reel, he could go with Found, he could go with both of them. Now Highland Reel's had the bigger rest since the Arc. Would you be inclined to go with him now, or would you just stick Found out there, knowing that she always gives her best and that she's bound to run a race again?
You could probably run the two of them, couldn't you? But they mustn't do anything with Found at home. She's kept busy and just does an awful lot on the track. But I think she's seriously resolute. She ran a good race the other day, but probably just the 2 furlongs a little bit short for her. But look, I was surprised to see Paddy Power. I think they're 11-2 on Found, and at that price, she'd probably be worth a bet. But I don't know what I'd be. I don't know whether I'd be second guessing Aidan O'Brien at this stage. He said it's a week to 10 days, and he'll have his plan firmly in order for his American raid. But look, at Found, I think it's hard to poke holes in her at this stage.
And Tom, do you want to just give us a quick show on the BC turf? Let us know, punters know where they are.
We're 5-4 Flintshire at the top. Highland Reel next in at 2-1. Found 11-2. Then it's Ecto at 7-1 with Erupt at 8s, Dartmouth at 10s, and 14s Bar.
Okay. Now, for the rest of Ascot, Aidan O'Brien had a couple of disappointments there. 7th Heaven and Order of St George being 2 of them, but I'm sure he would have settled for that after the performance of Minding in the QE2. She was sensational, and you think about the season that she's had. It started at the Guineas way back in April. She went up to 1.5 miles in the Oaks, came back again. Superb training performance, and we're lauding Found for how brave and tough she is. What about Minding too, Brian? She's an amazing filly.
Well, thank God for the fillies. Thank God for Minding, Alice Springs, Found and Co, because wouldn't have been a brilliant year for the O'Brien team. They've been reminded, I suppose, by it. Like, at the end of the day, they need to get these stallions out, and So Minding obviously kind of saved their bacon a bit this year. Obviously, we've got Churchill and Caravaggio to look forward to. Hopefully, they'll step forward next season. But look at Minding should probably stay in training, will she, lads?
Yeah, it looks that way. That's what I'm hearing anyway, but I don't know for a fact.
And Tom, would you say she's a miler who, had the class to win an Oaks and grind it out over a mile and a half, or do you think she could just be as good over a mile 2, mile 4? It doesn't matter to her.
If she was mine, I'd love to give her a crack at a couple of the good 10 furlong races next year. I think with another winter under her belt, you could give her an early season target like the Tattersalls Gold Cup at the Curragh in May. And work your way through the rest of the season, then that should be a good indicator. You could give her a pipe opener somewhere like the Alleged Stakes or somewhere like that, listed or a Group 3 race there earlier in the season. Go for the Tats Gold Cup, and if it doesn't work out, come back to a mile, because you know she's good enough. But just to see if that stamina is there, she's that classic Coolmore Cross, a Galileo out of a Danehill mare. There should be stamina there somewhere, and with another winter under her belt, it should help her bring it out in her.
Just a quick question for both of you. Going back to her run on Irish Champions Day, a lot of people were saying after that there was a golden highway up the middle there. And then when she ran in her race against Found and Almanzor, she was up the rail, which was not an advantage for her. Was there any truth in that? There was kind of a quicker strip of ground down the middle at Leopardstown that day, or would you just say she was beaten by 2 better horses?
I didn't walk the track, so I couldn't say for a fact. I did hear a lot of people talking about that. Yeah, you couldn't really be crabbing the front 2 in the Irish Champions League either. Like they were probably just as good, or if not better, than Minding on the day.
Yeah, they're a fantastic threesome, aren't they? Well, let's go to a break, and we'll be talking again very soon.
Here's Paddy Power's latest horse racing offer. It's money back as a free bet if your horse finishes second to the SP Fav at one meeting every day this month. Paddy Power, you're welcome. Max free bet £25. 18 plus. Please gamble responsibly.
Now, sticking with Ascot, the fillies and mares. I mentioned Seventh Heaven earlier. It was a bit disappointing for Aidan in that race. Was never quite in the right position. You contrast that with Frankie and Journey, who always had her in the right position all the way through the race. And I think turning in, it looked like she was going to win. And she did win it well. Guys, Brian first, were you impressed with Journey? And how far do you think she could go next season?
Very far, yeah. Look, she seems to save her best for the autumn. I don't know what John Gosling would be thinking. I know I'd like to be going maybe somewhere like Dubai. I saw Dave Simcock was talking about something like the Shima Classic in the paper today. It was a bit of a messy race in behind. I know Dermot Weld had trained Zukova for the race. A little bit disappointed with her performance. I think she's staying in training for next season. Look, Journey was really impressive, and Frankie Dettori was brilliant again.
He does ride Ascot well, doesn't he? And Tom, would you level any criticism for Ryan Moore on the ride on Seventh Heaven? Had her a bit far back and found a bit of trouble, or just simply run a bit below par?
Look, you see a lot of stuff on Twitter that Ryan Moore gets overhyped when he rides a good one to win, and everyone forgets about his bad rides. Look, that was a rough race, no matter what way you look at it. I wouldn't personally be crabbing Ryan for that ride. There was a few fillies in behind that got knocked around, and it was just unfortunate. So yeah, no, I wouldn't be too hard on him now, to be honest.
Okay. Now, we heard today the news that Mecca's Angel has been retired. She couldn't go out with a big fanfare at Ascot the weekend. The Tin Man won that particular race. What do we make of the Tin Man? Where does he fit in with the sprinters this season? There was a couple of disappointments in there, wasn't there? Twilight Sun disappointing, Quiet Reflection disappointing. Would you have the Tin Man up there with the best of them, Tom?
No, personally, I think the 3 that were mentioned in the paper today, and the Monday Jury, Quiet Reflection, Lamato and Mecca's Angel are definitely at the top of the table for me. Lamato personally, just because purely of his versatility. If the ground is quick, he just seems to win, and it's simple as that. The market for the Breeders' Cup Turf sprint reflects that as well. He's 7-4 and 11-2 bar. So he'd definitely be the number 1 for me anyway.
And Brian, do you think Henry Candy was a bit cautious going into the weekend? He withdrew Lamato because there's a few showers around on the days leading up to the meeting, but the ground didn't seem too bad at all, and you'd have had to have fancied him to beat that lot, wouldn't you, if he turned up? Yeah,
I think Lamato still has the potential, and that's obviously there for next season and obviously for the rest of this season. Look, he's still a gelding, and he could be one of these sprinters that we could get an affinity towards. I just find the sprinters, it's a tough discipline for me to warm to. Sometimes I find they just turn up and beat each other. And look, I think Lamato has the potential to go forward and get me into the game. Might get in a following on him. Obviously, we went through a bit of a golden period here with the likes of Soul Power, Gordon, Lord Byron, and that. But look, I think Henry Candy has been cautious all season with Lamato, so he's not really changing his tune just yet, is he?
No, that's right. And Tom, he may well go for the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint next. Paddy Power got prices for that.
Yeah, so Lamato's 7-4 favourite now, 11-2 Pure Sensation. Mongolian Saturday and Undrafted and Washington DC are in at 6-1. Then it's 7-1 Holy Loot and Ambitious Brew and 9-1 Bar.
Okay, Brian, Ascot on Saturday or anywhere else you can imagine. Have you got any eye catchers or ones to put in your horse tracker? Doesn't have to be the big meeting; could be anything you noticed from the weekend.
I wonder would Tom agree with me? Renetti, he really enjoyed things at Naas in the last there. He bolted up, and maybe that's the key, right and prominent. But just if anyone was at the races at Naas, just when you thought Renetti was about to turn a corner, he's a bit of a headbanger in the past. He failed to start in hurdle races for Willie Mullins, but he actually unshipped Chris Hayes after the line. I thought he was impressive in that he's entered in the November handicap next up, which is actually strangely run it in October at Leopardstown. I wonder would he take that up, or wonder would he even go back over hurdles. I won't second guess Willie Mullins. Just a line as well, Draycott Place. I spoke to John Ryan. He's always a joy to talk to ahead of that 50 grand handicap down in Cork. He says, I think he'll win before the race, and he was proved right, and he's already surpassed his record tally of winners. He's actually a strange trainer that he doesn't even have a gallop. He gallops around a ploughed field, which is what they used to do in the olden days, those 3 mile chasers. So I thought that was a good performance. Draycott Place. And actually today at Roscommon, Det Duty, rode it for Gordon Elliott. He might develop into a nice staying novice hurdler for the season ahead. But they're the 3 talking points I had for today and the weekend, if you can allow me. Det Duty in today's card at Roscommon.
Yeah, we'll allow you that. I'll second you, actually. Renetti's been also been following for about 2 years now, and finally did what he's threatened to do for a long time, and won nicely. It might be the switch to front-running tactics that did it, but it'll be fascinating to see if he can do it again, or indeed if he can do over hurdles this winter. And Tom, what about you? What caught your eye?
Just the one stuck with the bright lights of Ascot, unfortunately. Jack Hobbs, I thought, ran a lovely race into third. Took a while to get into his rhythm when he came into the straight, and I think he could. There's talk about him going to Dubai. I think there's definitely another. If he's back to his best, there's another big race in him at some stage, either at the tail end of this year or into next season. So Jack Hobbs for me.
Jack Hobbs, right. We're going to be back in a moment. We're looking ahead to the Racing Post Trophy.
Here's Paddy Power's latest horse racing offer. It's money back as a free bet if your horse finishes second to the SP Fav at one meeting every day this month. Paddy Power, you're welcome. Max free bet £25, 18 plus. Please gamble responsibly.
Now, Tom, this morning we've just had the Racing Post Trophy decks in. Have you had time to sort out your prices, and have you got an up-to-date show for us?
We actually haven't. I'm here. I've been clicking refresh since we started the podcast to see if the lads had posted anything, but we've got nothing priced up at the moment, unfortunately.
What would you fancy? What would be your fancy? I think Aidan's chief one is Capri in this. Would he be one you'd be keen on?
Not particularly. I wouldn't think he's rock solid. To be honest with you, now at the moment, I don't have a rock solid opinion on the race. But I wouldn't be backing Capri anyway. He's not for me personally.
And Brian, have you got any thoughts on the RP Trophy?
I think Capri is. I think he could be the real deal. I think he's going to be joined by Finn McCool and Yucatan in the race for O'Brien. I actually didn't get to look at the decks. That's the amount of research I put in for this. But look, I think Capri is. Look, he came in for a lot of praise from Shamie Heffernan after his win at Tipperary. He said he had the right attitude. He's not a morning glory. He's all about grit and determination, this fella. And I think that's what you want in a racehorse. You want a lad that just gets the job done. He's not going to go and win by 2 or 3 lengths. He's just going to knuckle down and do what's asked of him. And I think he's improving pretty rapidly. And I think he's going to be tough to beat in the Racing Post Trophy. Another Group 1 beckons for Ballydoyle, I think.
And surely whatever Aidan runs in this, they're going to be a fair way behind Churchill, you would think, wouldn't you, Tom?
Yeah, well, sure. Churchill. Churchill has been a funny horse so far this year. I think he's struggled to get as much credit as possibly he deserves. So he seems to be getting it now after the last day. But yeah, it does seem to be Churchill is the number one for the mile races towards next year anyway. So, but it's still you have to take Aidan's second, third, fourth, fifth strings into account because he just seems to have them in spades.
Very much so. Now, also Ascot at the weekend, dropping back to Ascot again. Jim Crowley and Josephine Gordon were crowned champions for the season. And Lee Mottershead, he hasn't been quiet about it ever since it happened. He put him up at 66-1 to become champion jockey this time last year, apparently, and he's insisted that I mention it on this postcard, so I have done. Guys, it might not be your thing, champion jockeys, that kind of stuff, but Tom, is there any markets up for next season's champion jockey yet?
Not yet.
No,
not yet. But it's. I think you have to take into account whoever's willing to give up every single shred of social life for a year that they have, because it just seems to be an unmerciful cross to bear. You're in the car non-stop. You're going from A to B all the time just to get one ride. Maybe sometimes it seems to be a very, very big ask, and you have to tip your hat to Jim Crowley, who's done it very, very well indeed.
And it's hard to think that he used to be a jumps jockey. That just seems so long ago now.
Yeah.
And Brian, what about you? And anything or any jockey who you think maybe went close this season, who could do even better and get the top slot next year, or is it not something that fascinates you too much?
It doesn't fascinate me too much. Obviously, it fascinates me the fact that the way Jim Crowley went about it, mentally and physically, to do what he did. Obviously, it's a huge ask, and that's why you probably don't see the likes of Ryan Moore and those guys, Frankie Dettori, putting themselves through it. They rather save themselves for the big days. But I was interested to see if Tom did have a price on it. Maybe Sylvester Sousa having the fire back in his belly. But sure, we'll have to wait and see what way Paddy Power price it up.
I'd imagine he'd be fairly close to the top of it anyway. But I couldn't give you an educated answer just yet.
I wouldn't be taking short odds anyway.
Well, such is the fast pace of racing that in about a month's time, 3 or 4 weeks, we've got the Bet Victor Gold Cup switching codes at Cheltenham. And final question, I'm going to throw a bit of a curveball to the pair of you. We want a jumper to follow for this season, but I'm also going to ask you for a selection for the Bet Victor Gold Cup. We've got established prices now. Maybe, Tom, you could just work through them. And So I want a selection for the Bet Victor Gold Cup and a jumper to follow for the season.
Okay, I'll give you 2 jumpers first. I'm a huge fan of Uccello Conti for Gordon Elliott. I think there's a big handicap, or even possibly a graded race in him this year. Ran Stormers in the Paddy Power at Christmas at Leopardstown, in the Thyestes in Gorham Park, and in the Grand National. And I think he's it could still be well handicapped of 149. I think. I thought also over hurdles, a young horse, Le Martelan, was very good. Possibly horses in behind him weren't great, but he did it very well. Won his maiden over in Galway very well last week, and whatever he does over hurdles, he could be a lot better over fences, according to connections. Now,
and the Bet Victor Gold Cup.
The Bet Victor, yeah, I'm just having a look at it here, and I haven't really had a look at it yet.
Well, run us through your prices.
So
for
it's Bristol de Mai and Garde la Victoire both at the top at 10-1. Double Shuffle is 12s. Lamy Surge and King's Socks are 14-1. Then there's a whole lot of them at 16-1, including Alumamo, Boonduma, Henryville, Josses Hill, Tacken de Soy, Village Vic, and Volnay de Thay.
Go on, give us one name.
Possibly Alumamo, if memory serves. He was fancied for one of the handicaps at the festival last year. Maybe he's got a little bit still tucked up his sleeve.
And Brian, same question to you.
I think when in doubt, I might just stick with Bristol de Mai. That'd be at a push. That'd be firmly with the gun pressed to my head now, I have to say.
And a couple of jumpers to follow?
Well, I had the privilege of being at Gordon Elliott's Cullentra base there recently, and it was hard not to just gawk with your mouth open looking at some of the talent there. Free Expression has been a name on my list for a long time. Obviously last season probably didn't go to plan. He's actually still a maiden over fences, yet to win his beginner's chase, which is hard to believe, seeing as he finished upside some good horses last year in beginner's chases. I'd say he could go the handicap route yet. Other horses there, Sutton Place, thought he was very good, showed good battling qualities to win at Fairy House last year. I think that was a grade 2 novice hurdle he won. I think he bet Royal Caviar. Vautour. What are we going to do with Vautour this year? Is he going to run in the Gold Cup? He's one of my favourite horses in training. He improves for Cheltenham. I've been beating his drum since he was over novice hurdlers. What do you think, Tom? Will he be? I
think he's definitely going to go to the King George, and then they'll have another meeting to discuss what the plan is for the springtime. But I think the King George is plan A anyway.
Yeah, well, we'll take it from there. But look, he's my favourite horse in training. He's not one from left of field, but hopefully he delivers this year in the Gold Cup. Another one from Willie Mullins' stable, Invitation Only. I think he could be quite good. Middle distance novice hurdle, and maybe this year, maybe the Neptune for him or something like that.
Well, if you want a couple from me, you probably don't, but the Victor Gold Cup, definitely red at 20-1 is one that interests me. Brian Ellison's horse, good form last season. And one to follow, generally, Millshorn, one that used to be with Willie Mullins, isn't anymore, obviously, because it's Gigginstown owned, but was second in the Albert Bartlett a couple of seasons back, and is with the doyen of staying chasers, Mouse Morris. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him in the 4-miler at Cheltenham in March. Well, goodbye and thanks to Brian and thanks to Tom. It's been a good show today, and please tune in tomorrow for Tuesday's Jumps preview postcard featuring Patrick Mullins.
The Race and Postcast in association with Paddy Power. They price up all UK and Irish racing the night before.